All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, C Wells coming at you, and we're gonna just do kind of like we did last week with the look at the standings and the divisional races. This show gonna be a lot more simpler and a whole lot more quicker than last week because things are pretty much they shaped up pretty much easily now. And there's not as many different roles to take. So things are pretty simple here, and we're just gonna kind of take a look at it. We're still gonna do some little chaos scenarios because you just never know. You don't want to close the door on anything yet, but things are pretty solid. But we'll just kind of play around with a couple of things, and then we'll get up out. We do have our week 12 pick'em. The link is active, so the link will be in the description, and it's on my Twitter, which is Swag Talk 76. It's also on my Instagram and Facebook, which are both Swag Talk. So if you want to pick some winners for this week, it's been going pretty good, man. We got a pretty consistent group of people playing, and we got a big prize at the end for the winner. So y'all keep it, keep on getting in, keep on picking, and let's see what happens. We've had some weeks where everybody does well, then we had a couple of weeks where nobody did well. So that's the swag. Like you never know. You get Prairie over FAMU when you think that's a for sure bet. You get Alcorn. I mean, you Grambling over Bama State. You get Bethune Cookman almost beating Southern. So it's like you can't never really count anybody out in the swag, and that's what makes me still want to do this show because there's always some room for chaos. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts. I know a lot of people liked this video last week, so we're gonna see if we can do it again this week, and then we'll move into our week 12 preview on Wednesday. Swag Smoke live on Thursday, um, and Sunday is our week 12 recap. We don't know. We never really know when we're gonna go if we're gonna go live on Saturday. Last minute, so hit that notification bell so you can be alerted if we do go live on Saturday. Or just keep a lookout for a post on my Twitter or my Instagram or Facebook on Saturday evening, and that'll let you know as well. So let's go ahead and jump into this because, like I said, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. So let's go ahead and knock this out. First off, we're gonna go through the standings on both sides. We start with the East Division. Jackson State leads the East at 6-0. They're 8-2 overall. They won 6 in a row. Bama State 4-2, 5-4 overall. They lost one. FAMU 3-2, 5-4 overall. They lost one. Alabama A&M 2-3, 4-5 overall. They won one. Bethune Cookman 2-4, 2-8 overall. They've lost one. And Valley is 0-6 and 0-10 overall on a 10-game losing streak. So let's take a look at where things stand in the East. It's pretty cut and dry. JSU beats Bama State on Saturday. They are the East Division champs. Now, for me, that's all well and good, and that's fine. But for this show, let's just look into some other things that probably won't happen, but it's fun to talk about. But like I said, the most realistic thing is Saturday. Jackson State beats Bama State. They win the East outright. Um, let's look at FAMU. They took a devastating loss to Prairie View, and now they are in. They're still mathematically in it, but they're gonna need a lot going on. They would need basically they would need to have any hope. They would need a three-way tie um, because they can't finish tied with Jackson State. Um, and there's no way that Jackson State won't be involved in a tie with them and Bama. and then in there, you would need them. Honestly, you would need them to win out um, to finish at 6-2 as well, because that's the only way you're gonna be able to get there is with a three-way tie, and then that would we'll run through the tiebreakers again. Three-way tie, um, all teams at 6-2. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head competition between the tied teams. All three teams are 1-1. So that takes us to B, which is records of the tied teams within the division. All would be 4-1. Head-to-head competition versus the team within the division with the best overall divisional and non-divisional record. Um, overall divisional and non-divisional conference record, and then you proceed through the division. That will all basically be 3-0 against everybody else in the division other than each other. Um, Overall record versus non-division teams, they all would be 2-1 in this scenario. Um, Overall combined record versus all common non-division opponents. Now this is my interpretation of this, and I might be wrong, but I'm looking at this as common opponents for all three teams, because I think that makes a little bit more sense to me. And they don't play all three teams that have a common opponent. They all two have common opponents. JSU and FAMU have TSU as a common opponent. They both beat Texas Southern. JSU and Bama State have Alcorn as a common opponent. And in this scenario, JSU would lose to Alcorn, so that would give Bama State the edge in that one. And then Bama State and FAMU both play Prairie View. FAMU lost to Bama State, so if you took it that way, then the Hornets look like they would come out on top in this. But I took it as all three having one common opponent, and they don't. So we move on to F. Record versus common non-divisional team with the best overall conference and non-conference or divisional and non-divisional record. Um, nobody's played similar. Nobody's played again. That goes back to what I said in E. So that takes me to G, which is best point differential between the tied teams, the head-to-head matchups. JSU beat FAMU by 14. FAMU beat Bama State by 15. So Bama State would need to beat JSU by at least 16 to win this tiebreaker. They do. They win. FAMU. If Bama State beats JSU by less than 15, then FAMU wins. If they beat them by 15, then I think that takes us to a coin flip. So I think it's going to end at G, and it's either going to in the three-way tie scenario, it would either be Bama State or FAMU. But I don't really see that happening, because I don't think JSU going to lose two games in a row. So I think they're going to win this thing straight up, regardless of what happens in their last two games. I think they're going to win this straight up. Um, Bama State, they need to win out in their last two games against JSU and PV, and they need FAMU to lose one game and JSU to lose their last two games. They can only finish tied with JSU, and if they do that, then that would mean they would beat JSU and they would win the head-to-head matchup. But like I said again, I think the East is going to be clinched on Saturday. I think JSU is going to beat Bama State and solve all of this. So we won't even have any of this. But it's still always fun to look at. And then we look at the West. Southern is 5-1. They're 6-4 overall. They won two games in a row. Alcorn 4-2, 5-5 overall. They won one. Prairie View is 3-3, 5-5 overall. They've won three. Grambling is 2-4, 5-5 overall. They won one. Texas Southern is 2-4, 3-6 overall. They've lost two in a row, and Pine Bluff is 2-4, 3-7 overall. They've lost two games in a row. And looking at the West again, it's just like the East. Southern wins on Saturday against Pine Bluff. They win the division. If they lose on Saturday and Alcorn wins, then if Southern beats Grambling in the Bayou Classic, or if Alcorn loses their game against Jackson State, Southern would still win the West because they would both finish tied at 6-2, and Alcorn lost to Southern, so Southern has the head-to-head matchup there. Southern has a couple ways to make it. The last one you don't really want. You don't really want to have to go in the Bayou Classic needing to beat Grambling to win the division. You want to go in there with that done. So beating Pine Bluff is imperative. You do that, you win the division. Alcorn, they need to win out, and they need Southern to lose their last two games. And Alcorn's last two games are against Prairie View and Jackson. So they would need to win both of those games, and Southern go 0-2 in their last two, because they would have to finish 6-3. Southern would have to finish at 6-2. Southern would have to finish at 5-3. They both can't be 6-2, and Alcorn go. So Southern would have to just crumble, and Alcorn would have to catch fire and win the last two. I started to put Prairie View in here just because, but there's no scenario that Prairie View can go, even if they finish in a tie. If they finish tied with Southern at 5-3, Southern beat them. They had a head to head. If Alcorn finishes 5-3 as well, then that's a three-way tie. And I think the first tiebreaker in a three-way tie is head-to-head between the three teams. Southern's 2-0 against both of those teams. So, that pretty much seals the deal there. So there's no real way that Prairie View can go. So they're mathematically alive, but realistically they're eliminated because there's nothing that works for them in a tiebreaker scenario. And that's kind of what happens when you kind of stumble early and you're trying to round yourself into form. But they have a tough closeout as well against Alcorn and Bama State. So, they could easily win both games, or they can lose both games, or they can split. But they, at best they can do is hope for at least to finish in a tie. But it won't be to their benefit in terms of making this conference championship. And as long as JSU wins out, they're gonna host the championship game. If both teams finish 7-1, they still will host because they will have the better overall record out of the two teams. Now, if it gets to be a 6-2 three-way tie, then if Southern wins the division, they would host because they would be 7-1. And they will have a better record out of whoever makes it out of these. But again, I don't see that happening. So for me, the simplest thing to say is if both Southern and Jackson win on Saturday, the divisions will be clinched. Otherwise, who knows what might happen? But I feel pretty strongly that Jackson's going to clinch on Saturday. Southern, I think they will, but you just never know how that team's going to show up. So we may have another show on Monday if anything happens. Otherwise, this will be the final one of two that we did. That's why I put last with question marks in the title, because it could be another one after this, but this could be the final one. So we're either gonna have divisions wrapped up on Saturday, or we're gonna have absolute chaos for the last couple of weeks of the season. Taking a quick look at the schedule for this week, just to kind of give you a heads up of where we are. We do have a Thursday night game. Alabama A&M hosts Grambling. That's a 7:00 kickoff on ESPNU. Let's see. Valley is at FAMU. Jackson State is at Bama State. Alcorn is at Prairie View, and Pine Bluff is at Southern, and Bethune-Cookman is at Texas Southern. So this is the final week that all 12 teams are in action in conference play, because next week Southern and Grambling are off, and then the following week everybody's season is done except for Bama State, Alabama A&M, FAMU, Grambling, and Southern. So this is the final full week of SWAC football. So let's enjoy it. And if it's anything like last week, we might have a show next Monday. So we'll see what happens. But with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.